Hi everybody, welcome back. Well, today I'm going to be sharing with you a few of my favorite fall recipes. This goes along with kind of the fall thing I've been doing for the last month or so. So today I'm going to be sharing 3 recipes, and these are the recipes that are kind of my go-to at fall. I have made a blog post sharing about 15 recipes all together, which I've linked below, and then that post will take you to the individual actual recipes on my blog. Of course, you can also follow me on Pinterest. I have all these already pinned in my recipe board there. So some of you may be familiar with these. I know some of you have already made some of these. So I'm gonna first start out with making pumpkin bread. Now I know a lot of you, pumpkin bread and pumpkin everything is like the first thing you go to, even starting in like September. But in my family, pumpkin bread is more of a tradition kind of as we move in closer to Thanksgiving and Christmas. This recipe has been around for at least 30 plus years in my family, for as long as I can remember. I've not changed a single thing about it, but of course you can always make your own substitutes. Now my mom actually likes to add raisins and sometimes nuts to her pumpkin bread, and I remember as a kid I never would eat it because I didn't like the raisins or the nuts in my bread. So ever since I started making this on my own, I make it absolutely plain with nothing. Of course you can add in whatever you would like. I think it tastes better plain though, in my opinion. Now this recipe does make 3 loaves, so it's great. Like for instance, I always keep one here at the house. I'll send one with my husband to work, or you can give one to a neighbor or a friend. So this is definitely a great recipe to share. So I've already sprayed my loaf pans with non-stick spray, and you can buy these at any grocery store, Walmart, Target. They come in a 3-pack, which is great because you'll need 3. And these are just the 2-quart disposable loaf pans. Of course you can use regular loaf pans, but like I said, for gift giving, passing these on, these disposable ones are great. And then basically what I do is just I put them on a cookie sheet in the oven so that in case anything spills over, and it's just easier actually to transport back and forth on the cookie sheet. So I'm gonna go ahead and go over to my mixer and start mixing the wet ingredients together, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've just done the first step where I've creamed the shortening and the sugar together, and it looks like this. Basically, it's just like a nice fluffy texture. And then next we're going to add the eggs, the pumpkin, and the water. And I just went ahead, thought I'd show you this way because I hate moving the mixer around, it's so heavy. Okay, so after you do that, you just have what looks like this. It's very soupy, but you will have still some of the lumps of the sugar and the shortening. Don't be alarmed, it's supposed to look like that. Just make sure you keep your mixer pretty low or it will fling out all over the place because like I said, it is pretty soupy. And now basically I'm just going to sift together the dry ingredients, and then we're going to add that just a little bit at a time. I just wanted to mention one thing I do, since this calls for 3 1/3 cup of flour. What I do is I'll sift the first 2 in here, then I'll put the last cup and 1/3 and leave it in the sifter, and then I'll put the other, like, you know, the salt, the cinnamon, you know, the baking soda, baking powder, cloves, all that in this one, and then I will just make sure all that gets sifted into the mixture then. So I just keep adding a little bit of a time at a time till it gets incorporated. Okay, so as you can see, it's really thickened up. I know this is loud. Remember to scrape off your bowl several times because the flour will want to accumulate up on the top. So I scraped it down several times. You know, make sure everything's incorporated. You can see now it's very thick. So I'm just going to go ahead and pour it evenly into the 3 pans, and then I'll show you what it looks like right before it goes in the oven. Okay, so this is what it looks like. This will be about how full each one is. I hope you can see that. These are just going to go in the oven from like 50 minutes to an hour, depending on your oven. You'll want to check. Definitely take a toothpick into each one. Make sure it comes out clean. With any kind of dense bread like this, you definitely want to make sure the center is done, but not overdone, because you don't want the rest of it to be hard. I forgot to mention, but while I sprayed these in the beginning with the non-stick spray, I also preheated my oven to 350. So I'll show you what they look like when they come out. So the second thing we're making today is crock pot beef stew. And I have to say I have made this 3 different ways now, like stovetop in the oven, the crock pot. I definitely prefer the crock pot. Not only is it easier, but I actually think it tastes better. My husband said he prefers it this way as well. My husband really likes beef stew, and years ago I always kind of hesitated making it because it was such a big deal to me anyway, making it on the stove and you kind of had to babysit it. This, you just throw everything in and it's so good, and I've actually started really liking it as well. So while the pumpkin bread is still in the oven, I went ahead and chopped up all my veggies. Again, you know, all the list of ingredients is listed below. I did go ahead and put the stew meat in the crock pot already. I always have to chop mine up a little smaller. I don't know about you guys, but every time I get it, it's in really big pieces, so I have to kind of chop it up to more bite-sized pieces, and that so the potatoes and everything match. I do have some carrots in here at the bottom, and I'm not sure if you can see. I listed on the recipe carrots just peeled and sliced, but I have to say the last several times we've made this with baby carrots, and both my husband and I both said we think we like it better that way. And then plus that one less thing that you're, you know, chopping and messing with. So I've already mixed together, you know, the flour and the spices, and I'm just gonna sprinkle that over the meat. And then you just want to give that a good stir so that, you know, it coats the meat really well. So I'm just going to go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients, the wet ingredients, and then my vegetables stirred up, and I'll show you what it looks like before I put the lid on. Okay, so this is what everything looks like. I just stirred it up, and don't worry, it'll seem like there's not enough liquid. I always think the same thing too, but it will make its own juices and make its own liquid. Of course, you can always add more several hours in if you feel like it's not going to be enough. And if you're curious, I just have this crock pot here. I got this one because I like the lid. You can close down the lid, so if you need to take it somewhere, it actually has like a really nice seal on it. So I just put the lid on it, and then I'll show you what it looks like hours later when it's done. Okay, so for the third thing, we're going to make apple crisp. My pumpkin bread's done. I'll be showing you that here in a little bit. We've got the beef stew going. This time of year, I love anything apple, like apple crisp, apple pie. You could definitely adapt this though to like any fruit crisp. For instance, like in July, I made it with peaches and blueberries, and it was excellent. I definitely recommend using the Honey Crisp apples. I think that makes all the difference. I used them last year for the first time. Normally, like I'll do a mixture. I've tweaked the recipe several times. I finally have like exactly what I want, but I definitely think the star is the Honey Crisp apple. So I chopped those up, and I'm just gonna add my orange juice and my spices to them. So I'm just gonna give this a good stir, incorporate the sugar and the spices, and then we're going to work on the topping. So here's what our apples look like, all coated, just sitting there waiting. And then this is the topping. I have just all the ingredients, the brown sugar, the butter, the oats, the salt, all that, and I'm just going to mix that up. So I've just put everything in my dish, and I already sprayed it with nonstick spray. I mean, this is something you definitely don't have to be neat about. Just put it in there. As far as the topping, this is what it looks like when it's incorporated with the butter. Now, I've always found it to be, because of the ratio, you know, flour to butter, it always ends up kind of the butter wants to all stick together. If you spread it out evenly, though, I've always found it works out. It's not like floury or clumpy. So I've always found I have kind of about this much left over, sometimes a little bit more, just depending. I usually make sure I use all the butter. So this is what it looks like. Just, you know, spread it evenly all over. I like a lot of topping. If you don't like this much topping, you can definitely cut the recipe for the topping. But I found I like it this way, and it seems to work. And like I said, I just leave kind of the excess flour and oatmeal down there and just make sure I get all the butter. So I'm going to pop this in the oven, and it'll be finished in about an hour. Here is the finished pumpkin bread. I just tried a little piece, took some photos. It looks great. Tastes really good. It's very moist. Love it. And then here is the apple crisp. And of course here I said, oh, and you don't have to worry about the flour mixture, you know, it always turns out right. And of course there was a few little pieces of oats and some flour right here. I did add a tad bit of water to it about when it still had about 30 more minutes, because I noticed these apples weren't producing as much juice as normal. I noticed that when I poured them in the pan. So if you notice that, just add some more water or some orange juice or whatever you want to kind of make some more liquid. So now I think this looks just right. We'll serve this with vanilla ice cream. That's what I have the picture of on my Pinterest and my blog already. So this will be good. So I thought I would include a little blooper here as I was putting up the oatmeal on this shelf. The top came off. And now we have oatmeal everywhere. Thankfully, I already used it. So now I gotta call in the hubby with the shop vac. Okay guys, so the beef stew is ready. It looks great. We're just leaving it warmed up. Waiting to eat. My husband's actually tried a little bit. He said it was great. And you've seen what it looks like plated and everything already on my blog, but it smells great. It's been smelling great for hours. Definitely let me know if you try this. I think it's probably one of my favorite fall recipes now. So I hope you guys enjoyed hanging out with me while I made some of my favorite fall recipes. Definitely let me know if you're going to try any of them or if you've already tried them. Again, all the information to make any of the recipes will be linked below in the description box. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye.